So, you're a member of the LGBTQI community. You may not even realize it, but there's a need for you to be an ally for others. As a gay, white, cisgendered male, there may be others who I can be an ally for. Members of the LGBTQI community who are disabled physically or cognitively are often overlooked, and as a community, it's important for us to all stick together and support one another. So here's a few tips on how we can support the disabled in the LGBTQI community.
The first part of being an ally is recognizing that there's more to a person's identity than their disability, meaning that disability is not a key defining characteristic of a person. And also, disabled people are a part of all LGBTQ plus communities. In fact, about 1/3 of all lesbian, gay, and bisexual adults have some type of disability, so it is quite common.
So the second step to being a great ally is creating spaces that are safe and accessible. How would you feel if there was only one queer space on campus, but you couldn't access it because it was inaccessible to you? That doesn't seem fair, right? Well, this can be a reality for someone with a disability. Oftentimes, queer spaces are not built to be accessible for everyone. Even when a space is accessible, transportation to the venue may prove to be difficult. Additionally, LGBTQ communities have been built around nightlife and activism. If you're disabled, protests, marches, and clubs and bars are usually not accessible. We as a community should do better. When planning queer spaces, take into account if there are wheelchair ramps, quiet spaces for people to have conversations, or even create a space that's accessible day or night.
Educating yourself about people with disabilities is important. You should know the proper terminology, like saying that if a person is in a wheelchair or uses a wheelchair, or when talking about someone that is deaf, you should use the capital D rather than using the lowercase d. Saying that someone is blind and autistic are proper, acceptable terms. Some derogatory terms are retarded, mentally defective, dumb, mute, lame, and crippled. If you are talking to someone who has an interpreter, you should look at the person you are talking to and not the interpreter. If you're talking to someone in a wheelchair, you should look at them at eye level so they don't have to be looking up at you. When talking to anyone with disabilities, you should talk normally and you shouldn't speak higher or slower. When someone with disabilities, you should ask them to help before you actually help them. It can belittle the person, and people with disabilities should be treated like everyone else.
Right now.
Treating someone equally means thinking about them when others have forgotten about them. Becoming an ally for a disabled person within the LGBT community can create a space where it's welcoming and inviting for all bodies of the LGBT community. Let's not forget anyone in our fight for equality. If you're interested in becoming an ally, check out the links below.